What happens when childhood trauma creates the perfect predator? Meet the man who eliminated over 200 people while his family thought he was just dad. Welcome back to SombrivoX, where we explore the darkest minds in criminal history. I'm your host, and today we're diving into one of the most terrifying cases of compartmentalized evil ever documented. This is the story of Richard Kuklinski, a man so cold, so calculating, that he earned the nickname the Iceman. For 30 years, he lived two completely separate lives, devoted family man by day, ruthless contract specialist by night. What makes this case truly horrifying isn't just the body count, it's how perfectly he hid in plain sight. Before we begin this chilling journey, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell, because stories this dark don't come around often. Jersey City, 1935. Richard Leonard Kuklinski entered a world that would forge him into something unthinkable. Born to an abusive father and a neglectful mother, the Kuklinski household was a breeding ground for horror. Violence was a daily occurrence, and young Richard learned early that life could be extinguished in an instant. At just 5 years old, Richard witnessed his older brother's demise at their father's hands. The family lied to police, claiming it was an accident. This wasn't just trauma. It was Richard's first lesson in how easily life could be taken and truth could be buried. School offered no sanctuary. Relentless bullying and abuse from both peers and authority figures taught Richard a brutal lesson. The world is cruel, and only the strong survive. By age 10, something fundamental had broken inside him. He was tired of being prey. Unable to fight back against the adults controlling his life, Richard found smaller, more vulnerable targets. Stray animals became his first victims. The methods he used were disturbing beyond measure. This wasn't random cruelty. This was Richard discovering he could control life and death. At 13, Richard faced his ultimate test. A local gang had been tormenting him for months. One frigid winter evening, armed with a metal rod, Richard followed the gang leader into a dark alley. One strike was all it took. His first human elimination was supposedly accidental, but his reaction revealed the truth. No panic, no remorse, only pure exhilaration. By his late teens, Richard had transformed from victim to apex predator. His reputation caught the attention of organized crime, and he quickly became their go-to specialist. Under the guidance of Carmine Genovese, Richard perfected his craft, learning creative approaches that would make even hardened criminals shudder. But the underworld is unpredictable. When Genovese was eliminated, Richard found himself without a sponsor. Forced to find legitimate employment, he took a job at a trucking company where he met Barbara Pedrici, a beautiful, innocent young woman who represented everything Richard believed he wanted. Their marriage was a horror concealed behind suburban normalcy. To neighbors, they appeared to be the ideal family. But behind closed doors, Barbara endured regular assaults and psychological torture. Richard was simultaneously the neighborhood's most generous father and most terrifying husband. Working with the infamous DeMeo crew, Richard perfected his craft. The Gemini lounge became his laboratory, where bodies were processed with surgical precision. His signature method of freezing victims' remains to obscure time of elimination earned him the chilling nickname, the Iceman. Richard's methods were limited only by his twisted imagination. Firearms, blades, explosives, chemicals, he mastered them all. But his most disturbing preference involved remote caves, where he would restrain victims and document them being consumed alive by rodents. The screams would echo for hours as he calmly recorded every moment. For 3 decades, Richard operated as America's most prolific contract specialist. Conservative estimates place his completion count at over 200 individuals, though some believe it was significantly higher. Law enforcement had no idea they were dealing with a single person. By the 1980s, Richard had become freelance, dealing in various illegal activities. But paranoia was growing. He began eliminating potential liabilities, including members of his own crew. This mass elimination was his first major mistake, connecting him to multiple disappearances. Detective Pat Kane became obsessed with bringing Richard down. For 6 years, he built his case piece by piece. Richard's careful compartmentalization was deteriorating, and he began suspecting everyone around him. December 17, 1986. After years of investigation, law enforcement finally had their trap. An undercover agent arranged to meet Richard to purchase lethal substances. Every word was recorded. 2 hours later, Richard was stopped at a roadblock. The game was over. The trial revealed horrors that shocked even experienced prosecutors. Richard was ultimately convicted of 5 eliminations and sentenced to consecutive life terms. What makes him truly chilling is his complete lack of remorse. In prison interviews, he calmly discussed his completions like a mechanic discussing repairs. Prison gave Richard something he'd never had, an audience. Media outlets flocked to interview him, and he became enamored with the attention. 3 documentaries, multiple books, countless interviews. Richard finally had the recognition he craved. He spoke openly about his activities, describing eliminations with the same emotion most people use discussing weather. Richard expired on March 5, 2006, at age 70. Even in death, conspiracy followed him. He claimed guards were administering substances and withholding medications. The Iceman had finally melted. Richard Kuklinski. His story isn't just about one man, his capacity for evil. It's about how childhood trauma can create monsters, how easily evil can hide behind suburban normalcy, and how society's most dangerous predators often look exactly like everyone else. His children grew up thinking their father was just another dad. His neighbors saw a generous family man. Even his wife, who endured his violence for decades, had no idea she was married to America's most prolific specialist. That's what makes Richard Kuklinski so terrifying, not just his actions, but how perfectly he concealed them. Understanding these cases helps us recognize warning signs, protect the vulnerable, and maybe prevent the next Richard Kuklinski from being created. What disturbed you most about this case? Have you encountered other criminals who lived such perfect double lives? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you want more deep dives into criminal psychology and cases that will haunt your dreams, subscribe with notifications on. I've got more disturbing stories coming your way. Thanks for watching, and remember, monsters don't always look like monsters.